Beer tubers, welcome back to Maxwell Starr's Beer Reviews, here tonight with something actually really quite special, at least to me. I'm going to take a look at something that was just recently rebrewed by Moosehead Small Batch Brewery. It is a look at Moosehead's 10 penny Old Stock Ale. Now, for most people watching this review, I think most of my viewer base comes from either like Ontario or somewhere else, but if you're from the Maritimes, you might remember 10 penny. This is something I kind of remember from my childhood. Now, what was I doing drinking beer back in my childhood? No, I didn't drink beer until I was 18, but still. The biggest thing I remember this is back in the late 1980s, I remember my dad was part of a local baseball team, and I remember going down to the ball field. And back in those days, I used to love collecting all the beer bottle caps that we littered around the ground. Literally, there'd be hundreds of them. And I remember collecting all the caps from beers like Molson Canadian, from Labatt Blue, from Moosehead's Pale Ale. And one of the biggest names from back then that is no longer around was Moosehead's 10 penny. Now, Moosehead's 10 penny was, I couldn't find any conclusive evidence about when exactly they started brewing it. I've seen some references saying it was brewed as far back as the 1930s, but what I could find is that it's generally something that Moosehead really started making, at least in bigger production of, back as far back as the 1970s. And was really popular back in the 70s and the 80s as part of the original like premium beer craze. However, it kind of fell to the wayside. It was more popular in Nova Scotia than it was here in New Brunswick, and it was eventually discontinued here in New Brunswick in 2007, and then finally discontinued in 2009, I think, for Nova Scotia market. So really, it hasn't been brewed in like 8 years, 9 years. Actually, more like 10 now, isn't it? God damn, I'm getting old. Anyway, so yeah, it's one of the things about the Moosehead Small Batch Brewery that I've actually been really impressed with is what Moosehead has been doing lately with brewing like old revived styles. Like, well, one of the last ones I did, and I just posted it today, was the Moosehead's stout look, which is like the original stout from the 80s. But this is an actual beer I remember hearing about. I remember seeing models of it. I've never had it. And it was kind of one of the ones that I missed out on, but I never thought I would actually be able to, try it. So it's not exciting to anybody else, maybe. Might be exciting to somebody here in the Maritimes, but to me, I'm like, wow, I could actually try some 10 penny. So yeah, Moosehead's Small Batch Brewery opened up probably about a month and a half ago, and they just started doing crowlers. So if anybody goes down to Moosehead Small Batch and on the west side of St. John, you want to try a crowler, these guys are only about $9 to buy, so you can buy a whole can, 32-ounce can of beer for $9, which really isn't a bad deal when you consider it's a lot cheaper than their growler option. And compared to other places that do crowlers in New Brunswick like Greystone, this is cheaper. But I'm not going to fault them, Greystone, obviously, for that, but because Greystone's awesome. Anyway, let's crack this thing open. This particular crowler was canned on the 9th of July, so 2 days ago at the time of this recording. Now, Old Stock Ale is, of course, I'm not sure what kind of, it's like a pale ale. I'm not sure which pale ale. Actually, that's kind of hazy. That's either haze from being cold or haze from the beer itself, but that doesn't look that bad. I got quite a bit of head on it because I kind of aggressively poured it out of the can into my Moosehead Pale Ale glass, but it's got a nice brassy appearance, bordering towards more like the orange, very copper colored. That looks nice. The head on it is nice and creamy and thick, and it kind of makes sense because like 10 penny was brewed on a much larger scale before. This was brewed in a small batch system and might have a little bit of a different aesthetic, whereas it's made in much smaller quantities. Anyway, let's give it a whiff. Not really much to it. Slightly bready. I'm grasping at straws here. It's like bready and cereal grains. Maybe a hint of corn pops. I'm really not sure what is entailed with the recipe on this one. And I will say right now, as a disclaimer, it's not like I'm expecting a winner. It's just I'm excited to finally try Tenpenny for once in my life. Considering this is one that I heard of when I was a kid, but it's gone now. It's like, of all the beers that I heard of when I was growing up and never got to try, this is one of the biggest names. The other one would be Maximum Ice from that, with those Michael Ironside commercials. So yeah, it smells like bready and toasted grains. Mostly just cereal grains. It smells like I'm sniffing a bowl of Cheerios. Hopefully I don't get copyright flagged the way things are today by saying Cheerios. Anyway, put her down the hatch. Cheers. It's not too bad. So it's earthy, a little bit resiny. It's got that copper coin metallic kind of taste like you would expect from a traditional British pale ale. The grains are very fresh in this. So I'm getting a big malt note where it's caramel, cereal grains, but a lot of it is like just a standard roasted barley malt taste. Caramel and a little bit of toffee. Maybe a bit of roasted malt. That's lingering earthy bitterness. As well as a lingering roast. Body-wise, it's a lot heavier than I was expecting. I mean, I was expecting an ale. So let's not beat around the bush. It's not like I was expecting a lager. It is a lot heavier in the palate than I was really expecting, because I was kind of expecting to get like one of those ales that's brewed closer to a lager. It's so not that they would do that, but I'm just saying that it's much heavier in body than Moosehead's Pale Ale, for example. But I find it very creamy and very satisfying. Part of it might be because of wow factor, being able to finally try this. Part of it might be because I'm drinking this extremely fresh, because at the time I picked this up, they had just released it, like on tap at the brewery, at the small batch brewery. Because I went in, actually, I was looking to see if I can get a crowler of the Bock that they have, so I could do a review of it. Maybe they'll have it again in a couple weeks, but when I saw Tenpenny there, I was like, holy shit. But I do get other grain notes in there, so I do get like touches of corn, a little bit of oatmeal. It's very creamy because I think of the oatmeal, the flakes that they use. There's obviously adjuncts used in this, but as far as things go, for a run-of-the-mill like pale ale, this is quite enjoyable. Not world class or anything, and it does kind of show its roots in the original recipe that's being used. But perhaps it's the small batch system. Perhaps it's the fact that it was brewed with a little bit more care, maybe. And I'm not saying that the lager is brewed with a lot of care. It's just it's brewed on such a larger scale. But if they take this and they brew it in a more craft beer focused brewery, and then brew it at a much smaller scale, then it tends to take on a different personality. And this doesn't strike me as that shitty pale ale of old. This is actually really quite enjoyable. Yeah, I'm impressed, actually. I like that. I give that a 3.5. Out of 5, that is higher than I was expecting to get this, to be totally honest, because I was expecting some kind of thin, junky pale ale that's indicative of what I thought Tenpenny was going to be. But I think that anybody who's reminiscing about what Tenpenny used to taste like should go and try this. But I would say your expectations should be that this is probably going to be a bit more robust and a little bit more flavorful than what you're used to, because it was brewed in a smaller batch system, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's very enjoyable. So 3.5 out of 5. So far, I'm really impressed by the things I'm getting out of the Moosehead small batch system, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely stop in. Like, $9 for a crowler, and I can just walk in, walk out with something new to try. Is one of the best deals you can get in St. John. Because when it comes to buying a growler, I have to buy 64 ounces of beer out of a bottle. I have to wash every time. All the pickaroons, you can just walk in and swap it. And but then you have that much beer to dry. With this one here, and 32 ounces suits me for a night. Like tonight, where I'm taking a break from the post chat from Beer Analysis 101. We just did Rhyme and Reason, Collective Arts, but that'll date this review. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So, Tenpenny's Old Stock Ale. Don't expect miracles, but I think if you're nostalgic, you're probably going to be pleased. Anyway, thanks for watching Maxwell Starr's beer review of Tenpenny Old Stock Ale from Moosehead. I'm loving it so far. We'll talk to you later. Cheers.